I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back?
What's going on, guys? It's Backchat TV and I'm back with another video. So, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, they've both finally made some statements on social media. We know that Errol Spence recently came out being wheeled in a wheelchair from surgery on his eye for a cataract that he said he had known about and had been suffering from prior to the Terrence Crawford fight. He didn't mention anything about it. I understand sometimes people have injuries and you think I can just get through it because it's going to take a long time to get the fight made, and if I mention anything about injuries it's not going to happen, so I'll just deal with it. So I completely understand why Errol Spence might not want to mention the cataract blurring his vision. I can only suspect that the cataract wasn't that bad, it was just a bit of a nuisance and he knew that he had to get surgery, but it wasn't kind of obscuring his vision to a point where he couldn't be competitive in a top level fight. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that, you know, that's one of the reasons why, because if it was really bad, he would have to stop it because you have to be able to see. So I think it was just something that was kind of obscuring a part of his vision, but not so much that he thought it was going to completely stop him from winning the fight, right? I'm giving Errol Spence the benefit of the doubt, but I'm trying to basically build a case and show you why I don't think this fight is even going to happen at all. So Errol Spence said that he had this issue after surgery. He's now recently come out in an argument with another boxer on social media, saying that he had a broken rib prior to the fight as well. I mean, how many excuses are we going to get? Even if it's true, if it's true, then there's even worse implications if it's true. And the funny thing is, I believe Errol Spence, but believing him doesn't take away the responsibility that he has to say something about this prior to the fight. I mean, now he said he had a broken rib. He said because of the broken rib, he couldn't train for weeks. He never sparred with anyone for weeks prior to the fight. So you mean to tell me that you're weight drained, you've got a broken rib, you can't spar due to the broken rib, you've got a problem with your eye, but you're still gonna take the fight and take everyone's money, people who bet on you, all sorts of things, just to get that money and underestimate Terrence Crawford? You still think you can go in there at kind of 30% and beat a guy like Terrence Crawford? Or was it that you just either underestimated him and wanted to take the money, or what was it? Because after the fight, when you make so many excuses, especially when you said you wouldn't make any, when you make so many excuses, it's kind of like you've only got yourself to blame. You know, at the end of it, yes, you say, oh, but Terrence Crawford beat my ass and, you know, all props to him. Well, what props? You know, I had a broken rib. He's basically saying, yeah, you did well. You beat a man with a broken rib who couldn't see, who hadn't sparred, who hadn't trained, and was weight drained. It's a backhanded insult, really. Do you see what I mean? Now, I'm not trying to say Errol Spence is mean in this, but the way he's coming out with all this stuff, and he hasn't really given any timeline for when he thinks he'll be better, when he's going to recover from this. He hasn't really said anything. He hasn't shown me that, like, oh yes, I had these injuries, but I can't wait to get back in there. It's going to be different. I'm recovering, and it's going to be a totally different fight. And there's no way Terrence Crawford's going to do this to me again or anything. He hasn't shown that he wants the rematch at all. He's just come out with the excuses, and there's no energy in this fight from Errol Spence. And that's because, like I said in a previous video, he doesn't want the rematch. He doesn't want the rematch. He knows, a man knows when he's been beaten. You know, Errol Spence had came back from a car accident, had a whole bunch of injuries, still got in there with a dangerous man like Ugas, and he beat him from pillar to post. Now, he took a lot of shots in that fight as well, and he looked a little bit jaded. He didn't look as good as before, but he still looked like classic Errol Spence. But he got through that fight how he normally does and just outmanned Ugas. And that's what he thought he could do to Terrence Crawford as well with all these injuries. When he found out he couldn't do that, all of a sudden, the rib is broken. The eye is way worse than he thought, you know. And then he also came out and said that he hadn't been living the boxer's life. I mean, what else? I'm just waiting to see if we can make it to 10 excuses. You know, like I said, if you look on the screen, I've put it up there. He had cataract, a broken rib. He never lived the boxer's life. I mean, whose fault is that? What is he trying to get by making all these excuses? You know, all he's doing is killing his reputation and is killing any chance of the rematch. I basically lost interest in the rematch when I first heard these excuses, because I didn't think it was going to happen beforehand, and I definitely don't think it's going to happen now. And now Terrence Crawford has come back. How do you think he's supposed to feel? You know, he's come out saying he's heard enough. You know, he's happy that this fight is not happening anymore. He just really doesn't believe Errol Spence wants the fight anyway. And quite frankly, he doesn't want the fight either. He doesn't want to fight an injured man who's got to recover from multiple injuries. He wants to move on with his life, see if he can get some big fights before he gets out of boxing. You know, and Errol Spence knows this. Errol Spence is biding his time. If Terrence Crawford says, you know, don't worry about it, I don't want the fight anyway, you get better. Which is what he said, basically. Not word for word, but he basically said, you know, live your life. I'll see you later. I'm glad it's cancelled anyway. And Errol Spence is probably not even going to reply to this. He doesn't want the fight. He wants to go on and fight somebody else. And I think he should, to be honest. I think he should get better, recover from all these injuries, get back into your sparring. Don't rush. If it takes months or it takes another year or however it takes to get back to that peak position, that peak condition, if you want to carry on fighting, get back to that peak condition, take all the criticism because they're going to say you ducked Terrence Crawford, go up to 154 and see how you do at 154. And then, you know, you never know what can happen later. But this fight's just not happening. You know, if it does, it's not going to do anything for Terrence Crawford. Errol Spence, at the moment, to be honest, looks like a complete shell of himself. He's got so many injuries. I think he'd probably do worse in a fight if he took a fight too soon against Terrence Crawford. So, you know, like I said, I feel like he's doing his brand more harm by all these excuses. At the same time, I do think it's important to say the truth, what happened to you. But, you know, you have to, there's a saying. They say that if you made your bed, you have to lie in it. Errol Spence said he knew all of these things prior to the fight. Why didn't he postpone the fight? Now, I've heard some people say, well, if he would have done that, they would have said he was scared and stuff like that. Okay, I understand having one injury. You know, like I said before, his eye was obscuring his vision slightly. I understand that. But if you have a rib injury and the rib injury is so bad that you can't spar at all, then you definitely can't fight. You've got no choice but to cancel the fight. That means that it was greed that made you just take the fight anyway, or arrogance. And I don't see Errol Spence being an arrogant person. You know, so really, what was it? It's not looking good for Errol Spence at the moment. I think he's just embarrassed. I think he's just made some of these injuries more than what it was to cover the fact of how bad his performance was. We've all done things like this. I've done it before. I've thought I was going to do better in a athletic performance, and I've done a lot worse. And I did have some injuries, but I made them seem like they were more than they were. I've done it before. And like I said in the previous video, this is all down to ego and the massive pressure that fans put on fighters these days. With social media, you know, you can have 1 million people in a few minutes make a comment if you do something wrong. You know, the backlash in today's society now can be huge, whereas before we had social media, it just wasn't like that. And it just adds pressure. You know, you can imagine this fight, when it was going to be made, Errol Spence would have told his whole family all sorts of things. You know, he had his children there and he wanted to be a role model. He wanted to win the fight and be a role model to his children, and he had his parents, family and his mother there and everything. And it all went wrong. And he didn't know what to say. He said he wasn't going to make excuses because he's got that pride. But end of the day, if you don't make excuses, it means that you were just terrible. And he can't live with that, so he has to make the excuses. Errol Spence has chosen to give all the excuses in the world. And I think he's just trying to avoid the rematch. And like I said, I don't even blame him. You know, I think that he said he doesn't want to retire, so he still feels like he's good enough to carry on. But at the moment, he has half a dozen injuries, and it's going to take him probably a year to improve and to get better and to recover. And Terrence Crawford is just not interested. He's also upset about all these excuses coming out now after the fact, because it takes away from his win, which is what he said would happen when they had their meeting quite a while ago. He said that they would say all these things, that you were weight drained and you stayed in the weight too long, and you know, he was right. So let me know what you think. I'm sure there's a bunch of people going to say that I'm being harsh. If you're injured, what can you do about it? But like I've stated my case in this video. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Errol Spence, because like I said, I like Errol Spence, but he put himself in a difficult position, you know, and he's going to have to live with that. Let me know what you think. Comment, leave a like, leave a hate comment if you must. I'm on to the next one.
I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? I said, guess